There will never, ever be a good Superman game. Facts. Superman, the big blue Boy Scout. He needs no introduction. He's a mainstay of pop culture. Over the past 78 years, this guy has done it all and been through it all. He's also been a video game character several times, but not to much success. At all. Hell, I still remember playing Ring Flying Simulator like it was yesterday. He may be faster than a speeding bullet, but he can't escape this episode of qTalkie. Ah yes, the cringe is real. And in regards to my first statement, you're probably either saying, yeah, of course, or you're saying, don't lose hope, you never know. Rocksteady might do him justice. Slow your roll there. I can understand where you're coming from with that sentiment, but let's be honest. Superman is way too OP to realistically be a compelling lead in a video game. Even in Injustice, Gods Among Us, they had to introduce a half-baked excuse for why the Resistance was able to stand up to Superman and his cohorts. This is a trope known as applied phlebotomy, and it's the only reason the other characters don't get obliterated whenever they're fighting Superman. From a story perspective. I totally understand it from a gameplay perspective though. This one is a case of storytelling and gameplay. It's fairly easy to tell a good Superman story in other mediums such as comics, movies, or TV. At least when compared to video games. This is because those mediums are non-interactive. You can just sit back and enjoy the story as it's presented. A Superman film can dive into his motivations and the psychological ramifications of his actions. A couple of movies I've already tried.
Save Martha!
But when it comes to video games, the medium calls for action. It calls for the player to be able to control the character of Superman and to interact with the world around him. Sure, you can punch a bunch of enemies and fly around, that's fun. But as Superman Returns the video game has shown us, that's only the case for about the first hour or so. At least in my case, I was bored of the game in record time, and the mechanic of preventing damage to the city while fighting became more of an annoyance than a challenging video game mechanic. It's an interesting idea to counteract his invulnerability, but in practice, it doesn't work.
It works. Believe me, it works.
That leaves us with a choice. We either get a compelling but not very interactive Superman story, or we get an action-packed but ultimately boring game. I have no reason to believe that there will ever be a nice balance of the two, and something tells me that a Heavy Rain type story starring Clark Kent wouldn't really go over well. Outside of fighting games, which DC superheroes have had a well-remembered solo video game outing? I can only think of a few. Alright, here. There's Batman, and then there's Batman, and a few other heroes had games, but they were all garbage. Jesus, DC. You are killing it in the comics. The sales numbers tell us that. But when it comes to your video games,
You suck!
none of your heroes have really had a solo outing that was good. I mean, please, for the sake of the fans, get your shit together. I want a Flash game that isn't for kids. I want a Green Lantern game that's not terrible.
I will show you all how powerful fear is.
Wow. This is what happens when you create so many characters who are based on the ideal vision of superhuman perfection. I really don't have any reason to suspect that we'll get a great Superman game ever, much less in the next 10 years. But honestly, I don't really know at this point. So help me out, will you? Do you think there will ever be a good or even great Superman solo game? Write your thoughts on the subject down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Share it to your friends and subscribe to my channel. I'm Q, and you can follow me on social. This episode of qTalkie is over.